virus across the U.S., specifically in some less careful states, and this has also led to some protests, specifically in those states. Actually, like Texas, there was there was a virus. Sorry, there was a protest against a law that mandates that you wear a mask, and it's a whole different question as to whether or not, it is actually within the Constitution and within the legal boundaries of the government to enforce people to wear certain garments, because it can be viewed as the limitation of your freedom of expression. Anyway, that's a whole different issue. So there's been a number of protests and people wanting to reopen, and this has been fueled primarily, in my view, because of the failed economic response by the U.S. government, the Trump administration, and Senate and House, all serving the interests of the corporate, of the elite, of the investors specifically, and ignoring doing a half-assed job of taking care of those workers and SMEs that really need the help. All they tried, their solution was frankly just inefficient and flawed. And there was a clear winner in terms of Europe versus USA in their response to Corona. So, on the one hand, in Europe, you had governments pay 80% of wages for any business that deemed that they could no longer sustainably pay their employees. So it's universal; everybody gets it, and by doing this, not only do you save the companies because you substantially decrease their overheads and their costs, but you also help employees who need to still put food on the table, pay their bills, pay their landlords, and their landlords can still therefore pay the banks, and the system kind of continues to work, although with the help of the governments. But that's more of a short-term issue. Whereas on the U.S., what they did was, first of all, they pumped trillions into the stock markets, which saved investors because they have to, those important investors, they're too important to lose money. They're too poor. If they lose their if their Tesla stock, or if if their Raytheon stock goes too low, like, I don't know, man, we can't be having that. So first they just basically bailed out all the investors, and those people had it pretty easy. And then they had the whole, they had a one-time check to all Americans, $2,000, 30% of which has still not been sent out. So, and by the way, $2,000 is hardly enough to get somebody through a month, like a big family of like 4 or 5, hardly enough to get you through a month, especially if you're going to include the rent and just the usual stuff, frankly. And you also had a separate program which was specifically to give small and medium-sized businesses, enterprises, the ability to take out low-interest loans, and just like slight cash injections so that they could maybe survive. And as a result, you pay the employees and the employers separately, so that's double the money for just immediately. And the consequence of this is not that it's better than what the EU did. In fact, it's probably less efficient, and it probably helped less, because on the one hand, in Germany, the unemployment rate went up by 1%. In the US, has gone up by 20 million people, by 16.3%. Sorry, 16.3%. It was at 20% at one point. It started to go down a little bit, but it's an extremely dangerous precedent when you have 16% of people that are unemployed. It'll put an enormous amount of power in the hands of employers, and they can say, oh, we're gonna have to make you work an extra 4 hours a week or something, or cut your wages, because there's 16% of the population that are willing to do that because they have no work. So it's quite dangerous, and at the same time, with that, people that have no jobs can no longer pay their rents, and those landlords can no longer pay the bank. So what's essentially happening is that you have the government trying to pay people's rents for them, and as a result, the whole free enterprise capitalist system that was created is no longer functioning as it's intended to, and so really what this thing did is that it's just a worse, a B-Tech version, a slightly downgraded version of what the Europeans did, in that it's less efficient fiscally, it's less efficient in helping people, both employers and employees, and at the same time it's also going to probably have longer lasting negative effects, in that now you have incredible unemployment, and at the same time billionaires and millionaires, their net worth is going up $250 billion. So as you know, the system goes, socialize the losses and privatize the gains, and we see that, you know, black and white pretty much here. And I'm no fan of black and white, but this one's pretty obvious. So yeah, man, all the politicians, surprise, they went out, bailed out all their big buddies, you know, the ones that are going to give them places on their boards, once they leave the Senate. And yeah, really same old stuff. And you know, you really need to get rid of these corporatists and people that are basically just doing the bidding of big enterprises, because it's not really, like, on one hand you have the market soaring and billionaires making loads of money, and on the other hand you have ordinary working people, 20% of them not even having a job, hardly being able to put food on the table for their families. Yeah, it's a huge contrast, and I think it's a problem that's long been needing a solution, and it's never more than now needed a solution. And unfortunately, everybody at the top, you know, is fine with the system, and until that changes, there won't be any actual, you know, policy changes or anything that will actually help fix the issue. And now you also have a second wave, or just a continuation of the first wave, which is just an additional spike, which could exacerbate the problem even more, and we'll have to see how the government is now able to, you know, tackle this issue, hopefully with better than it did the first time, and also how it'll tackle it economically. There's talk of a second you know, phase of the whole PPP bill, an additional $2,000 to every family, but it's just not enough. You got to be more efficient. You got to think of more creative ways to deal with these kind of issues. And I mean, even now, there's only 30% haven't received their first $2,000. So you know, I'm not expecting anybody to get this new thing anytime soon. So yeah, that's the outlook in terms of the economy, and we'll see how it progresses over the next coming months, and potentially even the next year. We'll see how it goes.